Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Let us know if you're having any troubles. So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm very excited to give this presentation. My name is Logan Christian, and I'm the Region 2 Conservation Advocate for Mountain Lion Foundation. So I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I cover a region that encompasses Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and of course, Nevada. So thank you so much for being here. It's really great to be presenting to you today. And again, our topic for today is going to be living with lions in Las Vegas. So for those of you who are not familiar with Mountain Lion Foundation, we are a national nonprofit organization that is dedicated to ensuring that America's lion survives and flourishes in the wild. So one of the ways that we further that mission is by educating the public about a large variety of mountain lion conservation issues. And we do that through a combination of strategies. We do outreach online, and we publish things, and we give presentations. So we've been giving presentations and webinars for quite a while. Sometimes we address agriculture producers. So we've given presentations to livestock producers that are living in mountain lion country and interested in keeping their livestock safe when living in mountain lion country and how they can go about doing that in a non-lethal way. And of course, we give presentations to communities and neighborhoods and entire cities that are interested in just simply staying safe in mountain lion country. And so this presentation, of course, kind of falls in that latter category. As many of you know, there have been several mountain lion sightings in Las Vegas this year. And so the motivation for this presentation is really to give you some insight into the species itself. So we're going to talk about, what is a mountain lion, what's their natural history, and get into some of the interesting details about the species itself. And then I'll talk a bit about the Las Vegas sightings that have occurred and some of the reasons why we might be seeing mountain lions in Las Vegas this year. And then we'll talk a bit about how to stay safe in light of some of that information and really how you can continue to stay involved with this mountain lion conservation issue as well as others. So again, thank you so much for being here, and let's jump into it. So again, quick presentation outline. When we do our first part learning about lions, I'm going to cover the history of America's lion. So we'll start at prehistoric time and come all the way up through the modern era. We'll talk about the biology and behavior of the species. We're going to outline why it's important to ecosystems, why mountain lions are really essential for the ecosystems they're part of, and then the relationship between lions and humans. That's going to take us into our second part, where we'll really dive into what's been happening in Las Vegas and some of the sightings that have occurred there. And then I'm going to talk about some of the threats or factors that might be pushing mountain lions into the city of Las Vegas. And these are pretty similar to other cities, but there's some unique aspects as well. And then as part of that, we're also going to kind of get at this question, are these sightings or encounters actually increasing? Or have mountain lions always been around in the city? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and why we're seeing what we're seeing this year. And then finally, for the last part of the presentation, we'll get into that safety and coexistence information and really talk about how you can stay safe and really enjoy the mountain lions that live in your area, while also having some information on what are the issues they're facing so that you can be informed on these issues and stay safe in mountain lion country. All right, so let's introduce the mountain lion. So mountain lion's scientific name is Puma concolor, and that word essentially just means of uniform color. So if you've ever seen a mountain lion, a picture of one, you've probably noticed they're mostly a tawny brown color across their body. Of course, they do have sort of a black tip on their tail and kind of a mustache, black mustache looking thing as well. But they're mostly of uniform color. Now, an interesting thing that you might know about mountain lions, they go by many different names depending on where you live. So you might mostly hear them referred to as mountain lions or cougars, especially in the Western United States. Of course, they go by other names too. So puma, panther, catamount. There's really all sorts of different names because we're going to talk about this in a second, but mountain lions are found in many, many different areas. So different groups and different cultures And different regions of the US and other places have come up with different names for the species. And then generally in terms of size, which is pretty important for identifying mountain lions, they are about 120 to 200 pounds for males, and they exhibit a sexual dimorphism, which means the females generally are a bit smaller, so between 65 and 140 pounds. So that's just a bit of an overview. Now, mountain lions have one of the longest ranges of any cat species. So that range extends over 6,000 miles from Canada all the way down to Chile. So they're endemic to the North and South American continents, meaning that that is their native territory. This is where they've been, this is where they evolved. So the latitudinal range of mountain lions has shrunk significantly since colonial expansion. Lions used to occupy the entire continental United States, but now they're mostly found as far east as Colorado and Texas. Of course, there are some dispersing populations of mountain lions that are in the Dakotas as well as Nebraska. Some very small dispersing populations are starting to fill those areas. And of course, there is the subpopulation in Florida known as the Florida panther. So some people think that that subpopulation in Florida is genetically distinct, but actually it's the exact same species that you would find in the Western United States, in part because it's actually been supplemented by mountain lions from Texas to help it recover, because it's a small and in many senses struggling population. So there's some great rebound efforts underway for the Florida panther, but it is the same species as mountain lion that we see in the West. So as you can see, mountain lions range extends into Mexico, down through Latin America, even as far as the southern tip of South America. So on that note, there was actually a recent pretty high profile sighting of a mountain lion in South America. This gained some international attention, so I thought I'd share it with folks. So in July of this year, there was a tourist boat in a lake called Lake Argentino in Argentina, part of Patagonia. And this tourist boat was going around the lake and came across an iceberg that actually had a mountain lion on it. So they suspect that the mountain lion swam out to the iceberg looking for food. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because, I mean, it's not only a reminder that mountain lions are found all the way down as far south as Patagonia, but really I think it's a testament to the species and its ability to survive in many different environments and its resilience as a species as well. So mountain lions are truly found throughout this entire longitudinal range and in some pretty unique environments. So part of the reason why mountain lions are so well adapted to all these different environments is because they've been around for over 300,000 years. Long before humans were on this continent, mountain lions were on this continent. So if you close your eyes and sort of imagine what North America looked like tens of thousands of years ago, you would probably picture things like woolly mammoth or saber-toothed tiger. But there's actually a lot of species around during those times that very closely resembled species that we still see today. And mountain lions are definitely one of those species. So they were around when those charismatic megafauna that used to roam around the North American continent were around. Mountain lions were there with them. So because mountain lions have been around for 300,000 years, most of their time in North America and in the Western Hemisphere was spent without humans. Mountain lions are descended from the Miacids. So the Miacids is a group of tree-dwelling carnivores that existed between 60 and 30 million years ago. And that group then evolved into the modern order of carnivora, which you've probably heard of. So within carnivora, mountain lions belong to the family Felidae, which is all the cat species, and the genus Puma. So cheetahs are also in the genus Puma. And there's a fun fact about members of the genus Puma, so cheetahs as well as mountain lions, they purr rather than roar. So if you're out on public land and you think you hear something roaring, it's probably not a mountain lion. In fact, you might be on the wrong continent because mountain lions do not roar. So looking then into the pre-colonial time, there was humans starting to come onto the North American continent probably around 10,000 years ago, and mountain lions were already around. So many indigenous groups regarded mountain lions as this powerful animal that was to be respected. And I wanted to share a few examples of that. So the Zuni people of New Mexico actually said that ancient ones wanted the world to be guarded by those who are keen of sight and scent, and they saw the cougar as the supreme example of that. The Miwok people of California viewed the cougar as the ideal hunter that was chief among the animals. The Apaches and Hualapai viewed the cougars wailing, which occasionally mountain lions do, this crazy wailing that you might have heard about. They viewed that as an omen of death. And the Navajo people said that the puma provided many benefits by leaving large portions of their kill around for others to eat. So as early as within the last thousands of years, people were already recognizing that this benefit of mountain lions, they provide food for other species. So several indigenous groups also created entire societies around mountain lions. The Zia Pueblo, for example, had a cougar society called the Kayak, which existed to help them in the pursuit of game. There was a Opi warrior society within the Cochiti Pueblo people, and this membership into this society was only obtained by killing somebody in battle or by killing a puma. And some cultures carried around something called a fetish, which was a wood or stone carving of a puma, and believed this granted access to success during deer hunts. In addition to this, mountain lions were used for medicinal purposes by some cultures, including the Aztecs, such as by using cougar bones or gall throughout medicinal practices. So all of this is to say, while some indigenous groups did hunt mountain lions during these early times, the impact on the species at the time was probably pretty negligible, both because mountain lions were very difficult to hunt, especially without modern technologies and practices, some of which we're going to talk about today, but also because human densities were pretty low at the time. And so there was probably a pretty minimal impact on mountain lions. But there is no doubt that the species was lauded and revered by indigenous people. So moving into the era of colonial expansion, this marked a very drastic change for mountain lions and really a reduction in many wildlife populations throughout North America. So European settlers really saw it as their moral duty to both civilize the indigenous people of North America as well as the wild animals. And they saw both as wild and savage that were in need of civilization. So cougars were no exception to this mentality. They were viewed as a devilish or immoral beast, and also as a competitor for game species and livestock. And so in the eastern United States, the first documented bounty on mountain lions was established in Connecticut as early as 1684. And then bounties continued into the 18th and 19th centuries as we expanded into eastern forests and they were cleared, and the cougar's habitat was subdivided and fragmented. The last known cougar in Vermont was killed in 1881, followed by the last cougar in Pennsylvania in 1891. And then after about the year 1900, cougars were basically extinct east of the Mississippi. So pretty short period of time, given that they were around for hundreds of thousands of years. It only took a couple hundred years to wipe them out east of the Mississippi. So as settlers moved further west, their livestock displaced many populations of bison and pronghorn, deer, elk, other ungulates that mountain lions preyed on. And since livestock were increasingly available and easy to kill, cougars did occasionally take sheep, goats, and other livestock. And this, of course, further cemented the exaggerated sentiment that these cats were these evil beasts that needed to be pursued. Interesting quote, actually. So Theodore Roosevelt was quoted as saying that cougars were the big horse-killing cat, the destroyer of deer, the lord of stealthy murder, facing his doom with a heart both craven and cruel. So even a president was against cougars. There was very little scientific information available on mountain lions at this time. And so people really let this exaggeration and hyperbole about mountain lions' capacity for death and destruction to really become the dominant narrative of how people viewed mountain lions. So then those cougar bounties continued into the 20th century, especially with the birth of a program called Animal Damage Control in 1931. So this was a branch of the United States Department of Agriculture, And essentially its entire purpose was to pay bounty hunters to eradicate any species that was determined to be a threat to agriculture. So that included mountain lions, it included wolves, it included even coyotes, bobcats, prairie dogs, gophers, jackrabbits, so really a whole suite of species. Between 1900 and the 1980s, animal damage control's cougar bounties actually resulted in the killing of over 66,000 mountain lions. And some of that was even done with poisons, which of course led to the unintentional slaughter of many non-target animals, including pets. And of course, this is actually still an issue today. Recently, New Mexico banned the use of poisons on public lands, but poisons are still in use not only for killing mountain lions, but other species as well. So then in the 1960s, there was a very drastic change in how mountain lions were managed and viewed. So most Western states then shifted the status of cougar from this evil predator to a big game animal. And that has some very specific connotations in the United States. So Nevada was one of the first states to change status and reclassify cougars as a game animal. They did so in 1965, and then most states followed suit. So this began this era of managing mountain lions under what's called the North American model of wildlife conservation, which basically just means managing species to provide hunting opportunities. So the only Western states that didn't follow that model were California, which actually passed a referendum in 1990 prohibiting all sport hunting of mountain lions. And then on the other end of that spectrum, another Western state that has a mountain lion population, Texas, still views mountain lions as a varmint that can be hunted indiscriminately. So there's still variation, but even Nebraska and the Dakotas, some of those states where mountain lions are dispersing, they immediately open up hunts on mountain lions as soon as the mountain lion population starts to get as high as even just 30 individuals. So really the take-home point is that in our modern era, mountain lions are really managed to support hunting opportunities in any state that has mountain lions. So managing cougars as a game animal has allowed for more studies and improved understanding of the species, mostly, again, to support hunting opportunities. We know that mountain lion populations have mostly returned to the Western states, and these states, especially the game agencies, do periodically estimate population. Sometimes this doesn't happen very often, but it does happen occasionally, and so some states are better than others. Nevada Department of Wildlife currently has a population estimate of about 2,000 mountain lions and allows for the hunting of about 250 per year. And that population estimate and harvest limit have remained pretty constant for quite a while, might be in need of an update. And I think there are some current efforts to re-estimate the population, and we are in contact with Nevada Department of Wildlife about that. But across the Western United States, including in Nevada, most mountain lions are hunted. They are hunted with hounds is the most common method until they are pursued and cornered into a tree and then shot and killed by a hunter. So that's sort of what hunting looks like for mountain lions. So again, in part because of hunting, but because some of that exaggeration and hyperbole has diminished a little bit, we now have much more of a strong understanding about mountain lions. It's not just limited to folklore. And some of the behavioral things that we've learned about mountain lions are very interesting. So first of all, mountain lions are obligate carnivores, which means they exclusively eat meat. They can eat a wide range of animals, but deer tends to make up the largest portion of the prey that they consume, at least in the Western United States, and then other ungulate species as well. They do prey on small animals like rodents or other mammals, but then they, of course, like I mentioned, prey on even larger ungulates than deer, including moose, elk, pronghorn antelope, bison, and even feral horses. So there's actually a very interesting study that recently came out in Nevada showing that some subpopulations in Nevada of mountain lion actually get the majority of their prey sources from feral horses. So again, ungulates tend to make up the largest portion of their diet. They give you the biggest bang for your buck, no pun intended, but that's really what they prefer to eat. So mountain lions also occupy very large territories without much interaction with other mountain lions. Now, Despite that, they do communicate with each other, and they do so mostly through the use of something called a scrape. So a scrape is just a pile of pine needles and dirt that a mountain lion scrapes together. They urinate or defecate on that pile, and then it marks the boundary of their territory. Usually these are placed in places with high traffic for other animals, including mountain lions. We recently had another webinar where our guest showed some really interesting footage of mountain lions and many, many other species coming past a scrape. So they kind of strategically place their scrapes. They also communicate with each other in other ways, especially in family groups. We see behaviors similar to things we exhibit in our families. So siblings will play with each other. Mothers exhaust tremendous resources to caring for their kittens, especially during that 12 to 18 month dependency or period of dependency that follows birth, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And then lions are very intelligent and curious. So mountain lions will roam through these vast territories, generally zigzagging, but taking the path of least resistance as they explore and look and search for prey. Once they find prey sources, they often return to those same spots where they've had a successful hunt. And they mostly avoid humans. They do not enjoy being around humans. They avoid us like the plague. So we're going to talk about kind of the implications of that a little bit later, but mountain lions do tend to avoid humans. And finally, they're very active at dusk and dawn, which is a feature known as being crepuscular, as well as after dark. But that's not to say that you can't see mountain lions in the day. They're very active in the day at times too. And of course, that's where the majority of the sightings we have of mountain lions occur is during the daytime, because that's when we're out and about. So we also have considerably more information on the life cycle of mountain lions, and this actually in turn informs a lot of how hunting is managed and other activities. So a female mountain lion's gestation period lasts about 90 days. Mothers have between 2 and 4 kittens in a litter, and they can have usually a litter every other year, so sometimes about 5 litters in their lifetime. Now, those kittens have spots when they're born, and those spots start to fade after about 2 or 3 months. And then, of course, they take on that tawny brown color, being of uniform color. And mountain lion mothers tend to exhaust a tremendous amount of resources into caring for their young. So they have to eat far more prey and deer in order to produce enough milk to support their kittens. And they even have to move their denning location multiple times so that they can avoid predators and other animals that might try to get at their kittens. So this is a time for mothers when they are absolutely exhausting lots of resources into parental care. And really, the density of prey within a mountain lion mother's territory really determines the survival of her kittens. So if there's lots of opportunities for prey around, her kittens have a better chance of surviving because then she can produce enough milk to support them. So after about 2 or 3 months, mountain lion kittens can be weaned off of milk and survive on their own, usually as early as 6 months, but typically they remain with their mothers for 12 to 18 months before they then venture off and finding their own territory. Now, male and female cougars are sexually mature at 2 or 3 years, and their home range for a mountain lion that is a male tends to overlap with several female home ranges. Male mountain lion home ranges tend to not overlap, and they both male and female exhibit polygamy. So females will often actually mate with several males during a breeding cycle, and this is thought to be a mechanism for defending their young because a male is less likely to attack the kittens or try to kill the kittens if it thinks it could potentially be, or if they could be their offspring. So again, cougars use those scrapes to signify where they are and tell other mountain lions that they're ready to mate and to find each other. And of course, to also avoid the territory of other mountain lions, especially those established individuals that have their own territory. And fighting does occur between mountain lions, but it's pretty uncommon. One thing I might not have mentioned, the lifespan of mountain lions is usually 10 to 12 years, although they have lived a lot longer in captivity, and females tend to live longer than males. So this next bit actually is really important for what we're talking about today when we learn a little bit more about conflicts in cities, really the dispersal and territory of mountain lions has big implications for other issues that we face, both in terms of human-wildlife conflict, hunting, and other issues. So after leaving their mothers, mountain lions set off, they find their own territory, and this time period when they're dispersing is a time when they're known as transients. So when they're off dispersing, when they're transients and looking for their own territory, it is a very vulnerable time period of a mountain lion's life. They are inexperienced with hunting. They're exploring completely new areas that are unfamiliar to them. And so most conflicts that happen with mountain lions happen with these young dispersing mountain lions. They might occasionally depredate on livestock or come into urban areas and search for easier prey, or just because that's the barrier in their way to trying to go find their territory. And so some conflicts do occur, and they tend to occur with these younger mountain lions. After about 12 to 18 months, usually a mountain lion has established its own home territory, and those territories can range from 25 to over 200 square miles, sometimes even all the way up to 400 square miles. And the size of a mountain lion's territory really depends on the availability of prey. So if there's less prey, then there's going to be a need for a larger territory to encompass enough hunting opportunities to support that mountain lion. Male territory, again, usually overlaps with several females, but the male territories don't overlap with each other. And those boundaries of the territories, again, are established with the use of scrapes. Now, one thing I really wanted to mention with dispersal and territory, there are some implications for hunting management and hunting in general with these facts we know about dispersal and territory. So Dr. Benjamin Maletsky recently published, or not too recently, but recently enough, published a paper that indicates hunting can also influence the size and the degree of overlap between territories, especially for males. So in his study, male mountain lions in the hunted population had a larger territory with more overlap, and they think that this is because there was sufficient mortality of adjacent males that those territorial boundaries cease to exist. So the reason I bring this up is because hunting does have an impact on the dispersal and territory of mountain lions and can make larger territories. It can also change whether mountain lions are overlapping in territories, and that has implications for how often mountain lions come into conflict with humans. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. Now, in terms of habitat and prey, mountain lions are, again, able to persist in a large variety of different vegetation types, including ponderosa, juniper, aspen, many different shrubland and plant communities mountain lions have been found in. And this is part of what explains why they have this massive geographic range. Again, they really are able to persist in many different landscapes, but they do generally prefer places that have lots of cover and are sloped. So these wide, flat expanses that don't have any cover tend to not support very many mountain lions. And that makes sense because they are a stalk and ambush predator, so they like to have terrain and cover to hide behind as they pursue their prey. Now, the biggest determining factor of what makes good mountain lion habitat, as we've mentioned, is really just the availability of prey, specifically deer. So, and that's mostly in the Western United States. One study even estimates that an area of land that supports 360 deer can generally support one mountain lion. And that doesn't necessarily mean that a mountain lion is eating 360 deer. It just means that that gives them enough opportunity to hunt for deer to support their survival. In fact, usually the amount of deer that a mountain lion on average eats per year is about 38 deer. So that's mostly an average, and it can vary. With that said, mountain lions can prey on many other species other than deer. We've already mentioned some of the ungulates, but there's also smaller species like beaver, javelina, raccoons, birds, armadillos, are just some of the species that have been documented as prey sources for mountain lions. Now, it would be a very big mistake to think that mountain lion predation on all these different species is somehow making them harmful to the ecosystems they live in. Mountain lions are actually tremendously beneficial to the ecosystems they live in, and they're actually known as an ecological engineer. That basically just means that their existence supports many other species as well as many other ecosystem functions. Mountain lions are also known as an umbrella species, and that just means that conservation efforts targeted towards mountain lions in turn help lots of other species that are sort of under their umbrella, right? So these terms are important ones to remember about mountain lions because they're pretty unique in their ability to support lots of other ecosystem functions and species. So I wanted to share some of the scientific evidence that supports this. There are countless studies on different topics of why mountain lions are ecological engineers. Ripple and Beshta had a study in 2012 that found that the removal of mountain lions from national parks like Zion's, Olympic, and Yellowstone in particular, which mostly occurs due to human disturbance and displacement of mountain lions, basically created greater foraging opportunities for deer and decreased riparian vegetation. So in other words, without mountain lions, riparian plant communities and waterways can actually suffer. Now, another study from Berry and others in 2019 found that mountain lion carrion provides for over 200 species of beetles. And a similar study by Elbrock in 2017 found that mountain lion carrion provides considerable vertebrate diversity too, so over 39 species of mammals and birds. And that was just at that study site where Elbrock conducted that study. Mountain lion carrion is also an essential food source for many other species, including other carnivores. Wolves and bears, for example, have frequently fed off of the remains of mountain lion kills, so they support other carnivores as well. And cougars help improve the health of ungulate herds, so deer and elk and other species of ungulates. This is because they tend to target the diseased and the older individuals in those herds, and also because they keep herd numbers at a reasonable level so that ungulates stay in balance with other components of the ecosystem. And something very interesting coming out in pretty recent research is that predators, including mountain lions, actually change the movement behavior of deer in such a way that it reduces the instances of deer vehicle collisions. If you know anything about deer vehicle collisions, that's actually a cause of hundreds of deaths and billions of dollars in damage every single year in the United States. And part of the reason why mountain lions and other predators change that movement behavior is because they keep deer away from open areas. Roadways are one such open area. Deer don't like to venture in places where predators potentially could more easily get them, and that has an impact on the number of these accidents that occur every year. So all this is to say that there are many benefits provided by mountain lions. In addition to their ecological benefits that I already outlined, they provide benefits to people. So definitely in terms of the deer vehicle collisions, but by supporting so many wildlife species, they support wildlife watching opportunities. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry in and of itself. They support hunting opportunities, especially for ungulates, by keeping herds of ungulates healthy. And there's also growing scientific evidence that shows that mountain lions actually provide people with satisfaction just by knowing that they exist. So you don't even have to necessarily see a mountain lion to appreciate it and know that it's out there and have respect for it for that reason. Now, despite this, actually, before I move on, I do want to say mountain lions also have intrinsic value in their own right. I mean, they have been on the North American continent since time immemorial. They've been serving as ecosystem engineers for hundreds of thousands of years, and now we're benefiting from those features as humans, but they've been benefiting ecosystems for a very long time. So one can really make the case that these cats should be respected for their inherent worth, not just for the benefits that they provide to people. Now, despite all these benefits, there are a few perceived problems that sometimes people focus on, and these are entire whole presentations in and of themselves. In fact, Mountain Lion Foundation frequently gives presentations on these topics, and of course there are other perceived problems too, but we tend to see them falling in these three categories. And so I would strongly encourage you to sign up at Mountain Lion Foundation or mountainlion.org/join us, and that way you'll stay informed about other webinars on these different topics. But the one I want to focus on for the rest of today is the perceived problem of mountain lions entering urban areas and coming into conflict with humans. So before we jump into that next phase, I want to take a quick break. I know I've already covered a lot of information, and I want to do so with a pop quiz question. So this kind of tests both whether you caught a certain fact earlier that I mentioned, as well as maybe some of your existing knowledge about wildcats in the Western Hemisphere. So the question here is, what is the largest cat in the Western Hemisphere that roars? I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to answer, and then we'll take a look at what folks come up with. Just take your first guess, first thing that pops into your mind. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, so it looks like people got it right for the most part. So the correct answer was jaguar. So as I mentioned earlier, cougars are in the puma genus along with cheetahs, and members of the puma genus actually purr rather than roar. The next two species on the list, bobcat and ocelot, are considerably smaller than the final species on the list, which was kind of the tip there, which is jaguar. So jaguars actually do roar. They are a large cat species. They are not as much found in North America anymore, although there are efforts to have them return to some of the Southwest states that are underway. But they are mostly found in Mexico and down into Latin America and other countries further south. So the jaguar roars. All right, so like I said, I wanted to outline sort of what the mountain lion sightings have been like in Las Vegas this year and why we might be seeing mountain lions in the area. So there's been at least 5 documented sightings of mountain lions in Las Vegas, and a recent sighting of a mother bobcat and her kittens, which I wanted to include as well. So just to step through these quickly, there was one on February 7th where a mountain lion was spotted on the west side in a neighborhood. And it was seen several times over the course of that weekend, then wandered off on its own. On April 1st, there was a female mountain lion spotted in the West Las Vegas foothills, and authorities were called. She was captured and released. So that's a pretty common way that mountain lion sightings usually kind of end up. Those first 2 examples is either they wander off on their own or they're captured and released. On April 17th, another lion was found in a northwest Las Vegas neighborhood, and she was caught on someone's security camera. Eventually, authorities came in and tranquilized and released her as well. Then on June 2nd, a male mountain lion ventured into the outdoor stairwell of the West Las Vegas apartment complex. Unfortunately, authorities determined that it was too close to people for safety, and that mountain lion was killed. On July 12th, there was a family of bobcats recorded wandering through someone's backyard, a mother and a couple of kittens. And then on September 7th, a male mountain lion was found in North Las Vegas. It was actually at 50% of its body weight, its typical body weight for that age. And so the Department of Wildlife officials decided to euthanize the lion, since tranquilizing and relocating it wouldn't have really helped given its current condition. So all of this is really to say that mountain lions and even some bobcats are absolutely around in Las Vegas this year, probably in greater numbers than they have been in previous years, at least anecdotally from what agency officials have said. And it's important to remember that mountain lions have always been wandering around Las Vegas. There's been sightings going very far back. So this really begs the question, why might we be seeing many mountain lions this year? And why would lions want to enter a city in the first place? Why is that something that they would do? So to really understand those questions, we have to understand several of the threats and the factors that might push mountain lions into a city. And these threats or push factors sort of fall in 3 categories, each of which kind of influences a different aspect of mountain lion success or well-being. So in case you're not familiar with these terms, survival essentially just means the ability of a mountain lion to survive until it can reproduce, produce offspring. Abundance refers to how many mountain lions can be supported by a given area of land, or how many mountain lions there are in an area of land. And distribution just refers to the ability of mountain lions to move throughout the landscape and disperse outward. So Each of these different aspects of mountain lion success are influenced by several other factors. So for survival, to really understand what causes mountain lion survival or what helps mountain lion survival, we have to look at mortality factors. And for mountain lions, there are many, many, many human-caused mortality factors that we're going to dive into here in a moment. For the issue of abundance, mountain lion abundance, we have to really look at changes in mountain lion habitat suitability, because that determines how many mountain lions an area of land can support. And for mountain lion distribution, we have to understand the barriers to movement. What kind of barriers to movement are there that keep mountain lions from distributing as far or in as many places as they might like to? So let's jump into each of these and learn a little bit more about how they influence these different aspects of mountain lion success. So in terms of mountain lion abundance, again, habitat suitability is really the push factor here. And what we know about habitat suitability, we've talked about this a little bit already, but there are several challenges in the Las Vegas area. Habitat suitability, again, is a direct function of how many prey are available, right? So the number of deer that are around and how many deer can support mountain lions. So in arid places like Nevada, the abundance of deer is mostly limited by precipitation. So as the drought conditions are worsening, deer and other prey species are finding preferential access to forage, the grass that they eat, in places like cities. So there's golf courses, there's yards, and there's several other water sources in cities. And these are becoming consistent sources of forage for deer, for bighorn sheep, and for other prey species that mountain lions rely on. So as we know, wherever the prey go, mountain lions do follow. In fact, that sort of becomes suitable habitat for them, since that is the biggest determining factor of what constitutes good habitat. And this year has been an especially bad drought year. So Nevada Department of Wildlife has been flying thousands of gallons of water into the desert, into these catchments that are called water guzzlers, to keep game species alive, especially bighorn sheep, as well as deer. But even with these efforts, many ungulates are venturing into areas, into urban areas like Las Vegas, to seek that shade and forage and water that is preferentially available. So basically what that means is that the urban fringe is also becoming suitable habitat for mountain lions. Now, an important thing to also note on the topic of habitat suitability is that Las Vegas is completely surrounded by public land. So there's BLM, there's Forest Service land, there's National Recreation Area. And, you know, if you're a city that's entirely surrounded by public land, those are places that tend to support mountain lions. We've especially seen that most of the sightings have been occurring on the west side of Las Vegas. That's close to national forest land. And certainly there are mountain lion populations all around the city. So it's not like mountain lions are necessarily, you know, traveling hundreds of miles to get to Las Vegas. They already live pretty close by to start with. So when we look at the ability of mountain lions to move freely or to distribute through the landscape, again, there's no shortage of barriers to movement for mountain lions, especially in a place like Las Vegas. So you might have seen this image from US Geological Survey before. It shows how the urban footprint of Las Vegas has expanded over the last 30 or 40 years. And as that urban footprint expands, roads and railways continue to extend further and further into the desert. And as they do so, the habitat of not only mountain lions, but their prey species as well is increasingly fragmented. So roads restrict mountain lion movement directly, meaning that it is more difficult to cross and disperse an area of land that has roads and these other human barriers. But it also presents challenges because that means that mountain lions are coming into contact with human beings more. And that's another reason why I bring this up, is because with all these roads, there's more places for mountain lions to come into conflict with humans. And of course, there's the growing issue of vehicle collisions. We talked a little bit about deer vehicle collisions. Mountain lion vehicle collisions are happening more and more all the time. In the Santa Monica Mountains in California, there's actually a mountain lion population that is completely blocked off from dispersing by an interstate. And there's been several vehicle strikes on that interstate of mountain lions recently even. So another implication of this is that it does reduce the ability of mountain lions to disperse and get genetic variation throughout a metapopulation if these subpopulations are disconnected because of these interstates and different barriers. So finally, when we're looking at these different push factors, to understand mortality, which influences the ability of mountain lions to survive and then reproduce offspring, we really have to examine the human-caused sources of mortalities that influence the species rate of survival. So hunting is not a benign source of mortality for mountain lions. In fact, in some populations in the West, hunting constitutes one of the largest sources of mortality for mountain lions. And most Western populations are managed to allow for hunting. That is what game agencies tend to manage them for. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's always a sustainable level of hunting. Research from just the last 10 or 15 years demonstrates that hunting is actually what's referred to as an additive mortality source for mountain lions. So there was thinking previously that mountain lions that were not killed from hunting would die anyways from natural causes, but there's now very good research to show that mountain lion mortality from hunting is additive. So if they hadn't died from hunting, they could have survived otherwise. That's of course not always the case, but research is starting to indicate that. Most game agencies do claim to manage hunting at a level that allows mountain lion populations to remain stable, even with this additive mortality source. However, it's important to note that game agencies don't very often do robust studies of populations for mountain lions that do incorporate habitat suitability. We've seen this in several states. So habitat suitability is changing. We've already talked about how drought, which as we know is probably getting worse in the United States, exacerbates those issues with habitat suitability. More often than not, population estimations by agencies really use data from hunters, how many mountain lions are hunters killing, to inform those population estimates. So they're not always entirely accurate. I do want to say Nevada Department of Wildlife estimates, again, a population of about 2,000 mountain lions and institutes a hunting quota of about 250 individuals per year. We are currently working with the agency to explore what data could go into those population estimates. But this is an issue, is really understanding how many mountain lions there are and how many agencies would like to hunt. And so important to that discussion is knowing that it is an additive source of mortality. Now, even if hunting does occur at a low enough level that the population can be sustained, hunting results in other problems for mountain lions and humans. Mountain lion hunters usually target the largest animals in a population, the trophy animals, and the removal of these established mountain lions can harm mountain lion social structure and create population instability. So I'll give you an example of how that happens. When hunting occurs for those larger trophy animals, it preferentially supports younger age classes by opening up the territory of those established animals that are removed for those younger dispersing mountain lions that we talked about. And also, like we talked about, research shows that those transient mountain lions tend to be unfamiliar with their new territory and therefore have a greater likelihood of coming into conflict with humans, whether it's preying on livestock, occasionally taking pets, venturing into urban areas where there's easier sources of prey. So that is another source of mortality for mountain lions from hunting, is that they then open up more dispersing mountain lions to venture into urban areas where they can come into conflict with people. And in addition to these human-caused mortality factors, mountain lions are frequently removed to protect other species of game animals. Bighorn sheep is a big example of this in Nevada. So in Nevada, there are frequently, on an annual basis, mountain lions that are removed to protect not only bighorn sheep, but also mule deer and other game species. There's lethal removal of mountain lions for other reasons. We've talked about human safety, which has occurred this year in Las Vegas. And of course, in Nevada and many states, a landowner can shoot a mountain lion on the spot if it seems to be threatening their personal property, and Department of Wildlife can be called in to help pursue a mountain lion that seems to be threatening property. There's other states that have taken steps to make sure that non-lethal methods are looked at first before we resort to those lethal methods. But that is a source of mortality for mountain lions that is caused by humans, is lethal removal for protecting livestock as well. Of course, there's natural mortality sources for mountain lion too, disease, old age, and of course, getting injured is a major one. But as we mentioned, human mortality cause sources are absolutely a major factor. So if we sort of turn back to our triangle of push factors, the important take-home point is that mountain lions are usually facing some combination of these push factors, and each of them is heavily influenced by human activity. So Mountain Lion Foundation is working on different projects related to all these push factors, but the point is they are probably going to continue at some level into the future. We are doing everything we can about these push factors, but again, mountain lions are going to be subjected to them. And so what that means is that, if there is increased fragmentation of habitat due to urban expansion, they will come into conflict with people more often as they come into contact with those roads and railways. As habitat suitability is diminished, or more importantly, as a mountain lion has to expand its habitat to encompass urban areas so it can catch deer, they will again come into conflict with humans. And then if there's hunting of the local mountain lion population, that does, of course, mean that there will be more transient dispersing mountain lions that could also come into conflict with humans. So the take-home point is that when mountain lions are subjected to some of these push factors, they do enter urban areas and come into conflict with people. So I know I've covered a lot of information here, and I want to kind of revisit that original question that I arose. So are mountain lion encounters on the rise? Of course, the answer is it's a lot more complicated than them increasing. There are, of course, all these push factors that we've talked about, which are very important to keep in mind. But there's also increased opportunities for people to see mountain lions. So, of course, there's more people all the time due to population growth, and that means more people available to see mountain lions. We're also seeing an increased use of things like door cams and trail cams, as well as just security cameras, and that is letting us see mountain lions that might have already been in the area. And then we've all heard examples of the global pandemic bringing out more wildlife species. You've probably seen photos of coyotes running down Main Street and major urban areas in the United States. So that absolutely applied to mountain lions too. That did probably, at least in the short term, mean more mountain lions were coming into urban areas. So the combination of push factors as well as increased opportunities to see mountain lions means we are seeing more mountain lions in urban areas. And this year in Las Vegas is absolutely no exception to that. So that means we are going to be living with mountain lions moving forward. We have been already, but these are even more important considerations now. So I want to kind of start at the outset of preventing dangerous encounters, which are very rare, and talk about some of the strategies you can do to do that. But we're also going to then narrow down into some more specific examples for what you can do if you do see a mountain lion, which is actually a very exciting event. So for homeowners, you can remove attractants from your property. That might come in several forms, like trimming excess brush and the cover that mountain lions use as hiding places. You can remove unintended food sources. And what I mean by unintended is things that you might not think are food sources, like pet food brings in wildlife that mountain lions can see as prey. Open compost piles are another example of that. There are trash being left out. There are many things that attract wildlife. So thinking about what those food sources might be and whether they would attract wildlife is a good step to reducing that on your property. And then, of course, you can use those wildlife attractants in a way that is wise. So maybe keeping bird feeders and watering devices higher up off the ground, and then securing pets and other animals that you might keep. For a mountain lion, that means you need to secure it on all sides for wildlife enclosures, because mountain lions can jump 12 to 15 feet. So that's it's usually the best, safest thing to do is to have an enclosure on all sides, or simply keep pets indoors, especially during night. Then you can install deterrents like motion activated lights, sounds, sprinklers, those sort of things to haze mountain lions and encourage them not to return, as well as other unwanted guests. And then for renters, there are no shortage of things that you can do as well, even if you're not in direct control over managing the landscape around your property. You can talk with your landowner or your landlord, sorry, as well as your neighbors about ways to implement these steps too at kind of the neighborhood scale or around your apartment. And of course, distribute this information to your fellow neighbors, which I'm also going to say is one of the best ways you can kind of continue your learning after this and share information with others. Because if you're implementing these steps on your property or in your neighborhood and 15 other people are not, it's going to undermine all the great work that you're doing. So see if you can encourage other folks to do these things as well. So then narrowing in a little bit, let's say you're out and about, you're on the trail. How can you then reduce the likelihood of a cougar encounter? So avoiding the time when mountain lions are most active, so not hiking at dusk and dawn is a great idea. Of course, you might not always be able to do that, but again, there's several steps here. So see if you can implement as many as you can. Staying on the trail and checking maps so that you're not wandering into unfamiliar territory is always a great idea, so that you're alert and aware of where you are. Not going out alone, because the more people, the less likely it is that a mountain lion is going to be interested in coming and checking you out. Keeping children and pets close to you. Children and pets have a tendency to dart and dash and do things that can trigger a prey response in mountain lions. And so we encourage folks to keep those pets leashed, keep children close. You can wear bright clothing, and that helps with, again, sort of announcing your presence to wildlife. Avoid using headphones because that makes it so that you are cut off from the world and unaware of what's happening around you. And then I put this last one on here because when I was a kid, I loved to go inspect every dead thing I found. And as much fun as that is, and as fun as it is for your kids probably, it is not a good idea to inspect carcasses. It could be a stashed or a cached mountain lion kill. It could also just be something that mountain lions might come by and scavenge on because they do scavenge as well. So avoiding those is always a good idea. Now, let's say we're narrowing down further and we do see a mountain lion. There's still many things to be aware of, and definitely not panicking is always number one, but you can really pick up on a lot from mountain lion behavior. And the best way to think about this is by thinking about a house cat, right? How does a house cat look when they're ready to pounce or attack? Usually you'll see their tail is swishing, they might have hunched shoulders. Those are very similar behaviors to what a mountain lion that is aggressive or interested in attacking might look like. But more often than not, they will be exhibiting non-aggressive behaviors when you see them. So a non-aggressive behavior might be just watching you without those hunched over shoulders or switching tail. Is perfectly normal for a mountain lion to be looking at you because they are very curious animals and that's what they do. Now, if a mountain lion runs away, that's also non-aggressive. Some people worry that that might mean it's trying to like find a better angle of attack. That's not the case. Mountain lions run away because they are afraid of humans. They don't want to come close to us. And so you don't need to worry. Just maintain your alertness. If a mountain lion is in the area and has run away, but not an aggressive behavior. So you can see these two pictures of cats. Even if a cat is looking at you like the top or left picture here, you don't have anything to worry about other than just making sure you're maintaining alertness. So if you do encounter a cougar and it seems to be exhibiting aggressive behavior, there's still many things you can do. First of all, never run because that can trigger the prey response in mountain lions. So maintaining your distance, but really not running and not getting down like sometimes it's suggested with bears to hunch over and protect your neck. Very different with mountain lions. Maintain eye contact and do not run. You might want to pick up children and pets because again, they have a tendency to dart and dash. And once you've done those first steps, then there's kind of 5 simple steps to get yourself out of that situation. The first one you've probably heard about: make yourself as large as possible. You can even pull up the flaps of your jacket to do that, and that just makes yourself more intimidating, and the mountain lion that's likely enough to scare them off. You can speak loudly and call for help because, again, the more people that come in, the less chance of an attack. Maintain that eye contact because, again, they are stalk and ambush predators and they do not want to attack something that's already aware of their presence. You can slowly back away after you've taken those steps, making sure that you're still facing the mountain lion so that you're putting distance between you and the animal. And then, of course, protect yourself and fight back if you do get into an actual attack. There's, of all the mountain lion attacks that do occur, only 30 in the last 100 years have been fatal. So you have a greater chance of dying from a lightning strike or drowning in your bathtub than you do of being fatally attacked by a mountain lion. Fighting back is often enough to deter the mountain lion. And there's many even recent examples of this being successful. And then I just want to mention that if you are at a distance from a mountain lion, enjoy the encounter, enjoy the sighting that you're having with a mountain lion. You know, it's good to alert others and make sure they're aware and make sure you're maintaining that distance and staying safe. But, you know, take a picture, do something to commemorate the moment. Send that picture to Mountain Lion Foundation. We love hearing about that sort of thing because it really is rare to see these animals. So I just want to end by saying that I strongly encourage everybody to continue their learning. I've covered a lot today. Hopefully you have a sense of why there's been mountain lions in Las Vegas, as well as some safety tips that you can take on. I'd be happy to share my slides or information with anybody who's curious, and I'll put my contact information up at the end. But there's just many other issues that we could talk about with mountain lions. I've listed a few here, and again, we give lots of presentations on these. So what I would suggest for maintaining your involvement, first, again, share what you know with other people now that you have this new knowledge base. Attend your Nevada Department of Wildlife meetings, the commission meetings that happen once a month, because that's where you learn about all these issues. Join us, go to mountainlion.org/join us, and that will be where you can sign up and learn about all these webinars that we keep putting on. And of course, we greatly appreciate any donations or support you can give that way. That allows us to continue putting on presentations like this one. So thank you so much for the support and just being here already today. We really do appreciate it. So with that, I'm just going to quickly leaf through these credits. Again, I'd be happy to share any of this with folks afterwards. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over for question and answer. Now there's plenty of time. All you need to do is raise your hand and that'll add your name to a list, and then we'll answer your questions one at a time. So just use that raise hand function unless for some reason you can't speak, and then you can type in the chat. All right.
All right, we have one question. Zach, ask your question.
Zach.
Zach, you're muted.
My apologies. Thank you, Logan, for your time. You stated that the Game Management Agency of Nevada estimates that there are 2,000 mountain lions in the state. Is this raw figures for overall mountain lion population, or is this an estimate of the adult population and those that are the ones being pursued by hunters?
Thank you for your question, Zach. Yeah, that's a great question. And there's quite a bit of variation among states in what they put out, what they publish to the public. Part of that is a product of the kind of data that they attempt to collect. So other states like Arizona do have sort of a division between this is how many sub-adults, this is how many adults, this is what the population is in total. I have not seen that for that 2,000 population figure. It's just 2,000 mountain lions, which I think we have to assume means total. But we're currently looking into that further, and under a current predator management plan for Nevada, they recently mentioned that they are doing some more in-depth population estimates that we are kind of in conversation with them about to see what that all entails. So hopefully there's going to be better population estimates soon. But for the last quite a while, at least 5 years, that's been that 2,000 figure, which doesn't really differentiate subadult or adult, has been the main one used in Nevada that kind of determines hunting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your question, Zach.
Do you have any more questions for Logan? Oh, okay. Looks like someone popped one into the chat. Says, because we need to create a crossing near residential areas, they're trying to figure out how they can help residents feel safe and that are adjacent to the crossing / corridor. Any suggestions?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So I'm curious to know more about this. Maybe we can talk afterwards, Pamela, if you want to reach out, but I'm curious to know more about that crossing. In general, just informing people what it's going to mean to have more wildlife species moving through an area is a really good idea. So all those things that we talked about with with staying safe in mountain lion country, prefaced by explaining that this is a really exciting opportunity. I think people psychologically sort of have more of an interest when they get excited about wildlife, because really we've all had that reaction when we see whether it's a carnivore like a charismatic wolf or something, or just even other wildlife species as well. Remind people that that's part of what's entailed in having a wildlife crossing near where you live, is that you're going to be seeing more wildlife. Of course, then that comes with the implications of staying safe and everything that comes with that. But I think starting from that place of this is a good opportunity, and maybe even explaining why that's important to have a wildlife corridor. And again, that really has to do with facilitating the distribution of animals through their natural sort of distribution and habitat, which they have a hard time doing in our current society where there's so much urban expansion. So kind of explaining the need, but really focusing on the positives of what that means for wildlife. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if there's anything else I can suggest there.
Looks like there aren't any more questions right now, so we'll go ahead and close.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you all so much for being here, and hopefully we'll see you again.